You know, when people come to me and they say, you know, I want to be an actor, what should I do? It's like, work anywhere you can, literally anywhere. Jump, you know, do some background work, do a short film, get up on stage, get up in class, keep going, get your reps in, because they're gonna call your number, and just be ready.
So honestly, I've done a few conversations with these two fine, talented people already, and everyone starts with not just rousing applause, but a standing ovation. What does that mean for you, Jeremy, after giving the performance of your career in the performance to get that kind of reaction?
It means everything, because, you know, there are times when you think that it's not going to happen, you're not going to finish it, and you just got to stay with it. So this whole thing is a miracle. And, you know, so we have no perspective. We put everything that we had into this film, so it's incredibly, it makes me emotional.
You know, Shira, just obviously, I mean, your family, but also, I mean, in directing Jeremy in the performance, like, what was it that surprised even you about the level of his commitment, especially when you were actually filming the movie?
Commitment. I never doubted his commitment, I guess. And yeah, Jeremy is an acting creature through and through. And his performance, the thing that's unique about him as an actor, I mean, that makes him so good as an actor, is that he's always surprising and always connecting emotionally. So, and I know people have seen him in a lot of comic things, and he's done over, 80 movies, and we've seen, if you watch a bunch of his movies, you'll see his incredible range. But what I love about this role is you get to see all of it. He gets to exercise all of those colors that you might not have seen if you've seen several of his movies. So you get to see it all in one performance, and you get to see how deep he goes as an actor.
So, Jeremy, I want to ask about your first of all, what informed your approach? What were your points of connection here? And how different was that approach to those other 80 performances that you've done in other films?
Well, this one definitely meant the most to me. It's the first time in my life that I've produced something, and I just want to say to anyone out there, you know, stick with it, never give up. If you've got something that you want to say, no one's going to save you. You have to do it yourself. That's the good news and the bad news. So, this one, who knew? I mean, I've been after this for 15 years, and my mother gave me the short story out of the New Yorker, and I got the rights from Arthur Miller's daughter, Rebecca Miller, who's married to a viciously mediocre actor named Daniel Day-Lewis. And, God, he's awful.
It's the worst.
Oh, yeah. And he's back. He's back. So it was very intimidating speaking to her with him in the background, and you just keep going. And this one, it's funny because I played other roles, and I think people want to know how much you're like the character. They want to know how much you like Ari Gold or these characters that I play. And the reality is I'm more like Harold May than anything I've ever played in my life. And so, and Shira and I grew up in the theater being directed by our parents, and our parents are teachers and acting teachers and directors. So we were on shorthand. So you guys are probably like, how could you work with your sibling? But it was very, very easy. And it made sense. And so, it definitely is. I don't want to speak for Shira, but it's the best work of my life. And I think when you put everything you have into something, and who knew when I started this process 15 years ago that we would be where we're at right now, and that it would be so timely.
Well, that's for sure. But at the same time, you talk about how you've been at this movie for 15 years. I mean, obviously doing other things too, but why was now actually the other than the timing part, like why was it the right timing when it came to your performance? Like how would your performance have been different, if at all, if you'd done this like 5 or 10 years ago? Why was now the right time?
Well, I think, as actors, you guys know that we have to access different parts of ourselves and be emotionally available and all that stuff. I think as you evolve, you learn to let go. And that's how you're healthy in this life. And at the same time, as an actor, you need all of that pain to have access to. So for me, the script was so great. Shira adapted the script, and it was so brilliant, and the actors were so perfect. Robert Carlyle, who played Fugler opposite me, is so terrifying and charismatic and all of those things that all I had to do was be present for him, and that was just heavy. So, you ask a great question. It's like I'm better now than I've ever been, mostly because I'm more broken, if that makes any sense. Yeah. Welcome to my therapy session.
Boy, was that the right answer.
Yeah, I mean, we're all these things that we've been through, we carry with us. So, but at the same time, like, Bratislava, where we shot it, was so heavy, and you could feel it in the air. I mean, we're dealing with some very dark forces.
Yeah, there was actually a picture that one of our producers found of the Opera House, the exterior that you see when you're looking at the Stotz Theater. And there was a picture from sometime, I think, early 40s of that Opera House with actual Nazi flags on it.
Wow.
During that era. Yeah.
I want to ask, it's one thing to give a performance, but when you have an acting ensemble, when you have a cast, the actors elevate each other. I mean, really, how did that audition process go with casting the players who would be with Jeremy in this?
It's so funny because always a slightly different process casting a piece. I mean, I come from the theater, and so there's a little bit of a more traditional thing. You sort of sit in a room and you audition people, or you have conversations. And with film, you watch people in the movies that they've been in. You watch self-tapes. You watch you watch them. You have a one-on-one audition like I did with Isaac Grin, who played Paul, and surprising things happen. It's so funny. I remember my now I'm getting emotional. Oh no. I remember the audition I had with Isaac for Paul, and I remember. He wasn't my first choice. I loved his dancing. He sent me a tape of his dancing, and he was a beautiful, like trained modern dancer, trained in ballet and jazz and modern. But I didn't know if he was as charismatic as an actor. And the funny thing is, I think it was strangely him telling me that this piece meant a lot to him and that he was Jewish. And there was something about that. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to cast a Jewish person. It wasn't that the role didn't demand it, but it was his personal connection with the role that I don't even know if I told you this. His personal connection with the role that tipped me over and made me feel like, and I really, it came back to us, tenfold, because he actually, I think, got a tattoo of Paul. The initials PG for Paul Garner, his character. He had such an emotional connection with the role.
Wow.
And Mamie, just beautiful to watch her in her films and her audition tape. She just sort of did this free improv dance, and I was like, I just fell in love with her. And Isaac and Adam Garcia is incredible.
And one of the great things about creating your own project as an actor for you guys is that you don't have to audition, which is just the greatest thing. We spend our lives, seriously. I don't mean to be too dramatic,
True.
but you guys know, it's just the dream to not audition. That's the dream. You know, to walk into a room and have people go, we get
a room
you.
of actors,
We
they understand.
know your work. Let's talk as human beings.
Wait, Jeremy.
Let's have a moment.
What was the last movie or show that you did audition for?
Well, you know, it's interesting because for Entourage, they wanted me to audition, and it was one scene in a pilot. And I said to my agent, look, I was 40 movies into a career. I was 37 years old. I won the Fresh Face of the Year at 40. Seriously. I said, there's nothing fresh about my face, but thank you. So yeah, if you hang in long enough, you will outlast all of them. Seriously. But I remember for that, it was one scene in the pilot, and I said, can we just please, they're like, they want you to audition for this. And by then I was doing leads and, a bunch of stuff, whatever. And I was like, we have to put our foot down. We have to let it be a meeting only. And so we did. And I went and, I went in the suit and I knew who Ari Emanuel was. And so I had everything ready.
You knew really well who he was.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, that's, you want to, but you have to make your own breaks. You really do, and you have to put your foot down. And but with Robert Carlyle, he's such a genius. Obviously, I just wanted to meet him.
No
he's
audition.
He's so prolific, and I knew that he had literally played Hitler before. He had done the accent, and we would just be lucky to have him. But I remember when I sat with him, he was so kind and sweet, and he had all these other elements to him, and I thought, if he can bring that to this menacing character, which he did, then you're seduced by him as I was, and then it adds so many layers to the story.
And that's really what we wrote on the page. My co-writer, Joshua Salzberg, also, I always want to acknowledge him, because we adapted this together, and mostly I don't think about, and I want to get back to Robert for a second, but mostly I don't think about and I don't even remember Josh wrote this, I wrote, we really wrote it largely in the same room, but it was really, Josh had a sort of vision for Fugler in a way. I had a gut feeling about Harold May. I had to deeply kind of get into that character of Harold May. And Josh kind of created, he sort of initiated this idea of Fugler, and we wanted them to feel close. We wanted that connection between Harold and Fugler. And to have an actor like Carlyle, who I remember my Zoom with him, who said this, and he did, actors say a lot of things, directors say a lot of things when they're trying to charm each other, but this Zoom felt really real. And he said, I've read so many scripts lately, and I feel lucky to have had this come across my desk. It just felt like he had he had that passion. I think that's how indie films get made, on that particular kind of passion for the material, because it makes everyone want to get up in the morning and show up when all of the forces in the world might be working against you.
You made a comment talking about Ari Emanuel and Ari Gold. Oh, you really know that character. How did you get to really know Harold?
Well, I'm more like him than any role I've ever played in my life, and so I just had to show up, basically. So when Shira yelled action. I identify with this character so much that and then when you play opposite these brilliant actors, everyone in our troupe is British or Australian. They were all doing American accents. They're all, flawlessly. And
Or Scottish.
Yeah.
In Robert's case.
Yeah. And they were all so brilliant. And I think when you do all the homework that you can, and you access the things that are appropriate for that character. And in this particular case, again, I've been asked that question a lot. How much are you like this character? Well, this character is very much me. I could really identify with him in every way, shape, or form. So I felt incredibly lucky to play him. And I was producing, which led to some interesting situations, like me wanting to keep it moving so we can get our days in. And so instead of using my stunt double, who was stronger and more equipped and better looking than me, and was Turkish and very good looking. And instead of using him, I did it myself and broke 8 ribs during the scene with the Nazis. Thank you. Okay, yeah, broken ribs.
Don't applaud.
Yeah, let's
Thank
go.
you for that.
Let's go, broken ribs. But that was one take. That was one take because that's all we got, you know. And so, you know, it's funny, like, it's hard for me to watch some of these scenes because it's like you talk about giving everything you got. That was all there. And so it was the wrong thing to do.
Which
And she
I
told me-
mentioned
yeah, she
before you went out.
She absolutely warned me not to
Otherwise,
do
if I hadn't, I would feel so much more guilty sitting here because I know at least I tried.
it. Yeah, and you know, it's lessons learned. You know, you just learn these lessons the hard way.
But see, you talk about a gut-wrenching performance. You know, that's doesn't even include all of the work, all the training, all the preparation you had to do when it came to the tap dancing. Because not only you're playing a professional tap dancer, so you have to be a professional tap dancer. Like, how did that process, you know, go along, and how long did it take before you started to really feel like I can do this on camera?
Well, I mean, initially, you know, we're all, as actors, we look at something and just we feel very. I just felt like I didn't even think, okay, I'm going to play a professional tap dancer, and he is the head of this troupe. I didn't think, well, wait a minute, I don't tap. I just thought, literally, okay, I'm going to start learning how to tap. And so 15 years ago, I started to learn tap. And every year they said no, I just got better at tap. So literally. So, you know, they'll just keep saying no, and you'll just keep getting better. And I remember I was in like elevators and, you know, always tapping, and people thought there was something wrong with me, that I had maybe an affliction. And then I made a breakthrough, and someone said, do you tap dance? And I was like, oh, okay. Now it's starting to sound like something. So I had little like breakthrough moments. And by the way, like anything in life, you have to be okay looking really foolish, you know? And it felt silly. I'm a drummer. I've been a drummer my whole life. So rhythmically, I understand where everything lives, and I know how to stick the landing. But I just stayed with the tap, and yeah, got lucky, and here we are.
And there's also, it makes me think of, there's something about doing independent film that is such a high wire act as well. Like Jeremy often tells the story and says, I was delusional. And in a way, I feel a similar way, that as a director, I was a little bit delusional as well. And I remember going to Bratislava, and we had been there, we had scouted in August of 2021. It was an incredible experience. And I kept going like, gosh, I hope this happens. I hope all of the financing comes in and we can actually go and make this movie. Mm-hmm. And then when I was actually going to, you know, we were planning, I was flying to Bratislava for pre-production. And I was thinking as Jeremy was talking that there's also this level of trust. Like, I wasn't at all of the rehearsals beforehand for the tap dancing. I knew that Jeremy was tap dancing. I was like, we're going to make a tap dancing movie with German language, with a period movie on an indie budget. And we had to we were like outsourcing they were doing rehearsals in London. They were doing, I think, in New York. And I was just like, and Jared, our amazing choreographer, Jared Grimes, who's Tony nominated actor, who's just on Broadway for Funny Girl. And he's not only a great choreographer, but he's a specialist in this particular period of tap. A tap choreographer, but this particular niche period of tap choreography. And he would send me videos of like people in street clothes doing, I can't remember what it's called. It was like the stand-ins. They were dancers that would do the tap before he would teach it to our cast. And I would be like, this looks good. I have to now visualize it in costume, in the right sets. There's just a lot of trust. And I had to have this deep sense of like, trust in the collaborative magic that happens with film, and that everyone, I knew, luckily Jeremy was the anchor. I knew that no one can act like him. And slowly we were building a cast around him that I knew the acting could happen. The rest of it, was I able to make a movie out of this? It all seems a little bit magic at this point.
You were going to say something.
No, yeah, thank you. But just to let you guys know, I was kind of the least competent tap dancer in my troupe, because they're all the Brits. They grow up tap dancing. I grew up thinking that I was going to be a Jewish football player in the NFL.
And Adam Garcia
Not
literally,
there are no 5'8" linebackers.
Adam Garcia considers him, literally said in his tape, I consider myself an expert at tap. And I'm like,
And he is, but my point to you guys is that we embrace how delusional we are. I mean that, because that's our superpower. Because I just thought, okay, I'm going to do whatever it takes to pull this off, and nothing's going to stop me.
So, nothing did stop me. Right. So, Shira, you're talking about this is an independent movie and, just hoping that the financing came through, and can you do this? And then when you finally got to do this, how many days did you have to do this?
I think we started out with like 28 days. We ended up shooting for a total of 30, I think.
30 days.
Yeah. And
yeah,
it
wow.
was like a race, but something that Joey Soloway says is, what is it? She's like, we're always chasing the light, but no, we are the light. Right. We have to believe that we are the light. And so in a weird way, you have to do like 6-7 scenes in a day. You have to take a breath, slow down, and make sure that you're really not rushing. You may be moving quickly, but you can't rush it.
But we were shut down in the middle of production,
Yes.
and if we don't have enough time, and they're going to give us the hook at a certain point. I wish I could talk to you guys forever. But like what we went through to get this, we're still living it. We're still trying to figure out, exactly how to get this out. So, I do feel like my character, because this film is about, among other things, how much of yourself will you compromise for your momentum in your life and your career and success, and can art override hate. There's a lot of amazing themes in this film, and I feel like I'm still kind of living it. You know what I mean? But to get something like this made, they're all going to tell you it can't be done, and they're going to tell you all the different reasons why you can't do it, and you just have to keep going.
But the fast production like that, especially one that is so visceral for you because of your performance, how did TV is very fast paced, and after 8 seasons of Entourage, how did that sort of help you when it came to shooting at a fast pace for the performance?
Well, I mean, everything helps you. Everything that you've done. When people come to me and they say, I want to be an actor, what should I do? It's like, work anywhere you can, literally anywhere. Jump, do some background work, do a short film, get up on stage, get up in class, keep going, get your reps in, because they're gonna call your number, and just be ready. And so yes, Entourage, there were times during Entourage I would shoot 14 pages in a day, and we would just crank it out. So I'm prepared for this, and we were prepared for this, and you have to be ready. We had to, Shira had to trust that the troupe is ready to go, and we all know our choreography. I've never done choreography before.
No.
I was horrible. I mean, like, the rest of my troupe was just crushing it, and I was just,
Jared and I had a phone call when Pearl was taking my daughter was taking her driving test. I was talking to Jared, and he was trying to explain to me that Jeremy had never learned choreography before. And I was like, Jared, you can do this. And Jeremy can do this. And it's amazing that you did.
Yeah, you just it's one of those things where, like, there's so many, giving up is very easy, and if you just don't do it, and you stay with it, and you trust yourself, and it's all going to happen. And but one of the biggest variables, I swear to you, is being okay humiliating yourself. I mean that. I mean, because these guys
Taking
in my
risks.
troupe, yeah, they understand intrinsically, and so by the time, to answer your question of how did we get this in this amount of time is our mother, who's also our teacher, says, she quotes Shakespeare, "The readiness is all," and you got to be ready. So ultimately, when we were shooting, we just had to know our stuff inside and out so that we couldn't be stopped. You know what I mean? She turns on the cameras and we got to hit it. And one of the things that Jared, who's so brilliant, said to me is, if you're really having a great time up there, we're going to want to join you. You know what I mean? And so I just took that note and just went with it. And so then he started telling me, man, you're doing it. So there are all these variables. Like, I'm not the best tap dancer in the room, but if I just look like it's easy for me and I'm having the time of my life, like, that goes a long way.
It definitely does.
And that's an interesting color, I think, too, that actors don't use enough is joy. There's, we learn how to cry in acting class and access our deeper emotions, but joy is such an important one. And I love this. I love that particular kind of collaborative thing that happened because it's part of the magic.
So with all the prep that you did to get into character as Harold, when you said, cut, that's a wrap, how did you get out?
Well, I'm still not out. I mean, I'm in it. I couldn't be more in it. If someone yelled action right now, I would do better work than that. 1,000%. Let's go. I'll shoot the sequel in the lobby right now.
The performance.
On your iPhones. You think I'm kidding? No, man, it's a great question, and I don't know the answer to that. And that's a much deeper question. How much do we hold on to from these characters? But, it's such a great cautionary tale that I think, and I'd love to hear from you guys, and I'm very curious, because I think this film lands differently with everyone, how we connect to it. Who are we in this life? Are we standing up for ourselves? How much are we compromising? And I'm still living it, and I'm very proud of this film and this character, and it's like, you guys showing up means the world to us because this is one, we're not a big studio. And so this is going to take a grassroots effort of people just going out there and saying, hey, man, I saw this film and I really connected with it.
And also thematically, for me, it's so important to make things that are about what's really happening in the moment. And otherwise, why are we doing it? And the world has changed so much since we started doing this film. It tragically changed. And I think there's something about going back to pre-World War II and World War II I feel that we would keep returning to that era for so many stories is that there's a certain moral clarity to that period where it felt like evil and good and evil were extremely clear. And I think we're longing for that kind of clarity now in a way. And yeah, I mean, also stories are a metaphor. So a Jew and a Nazi is a Jew and a Nazi, literally, but it's also could be any other oppressed person and oppressor. And I think in this day and age, we have to look at this story metaphorically. For me personally, when we say never again, as Jews, personally, I feel so strongly that it has to be never again for any people. And for me, that's why the movie deepens in that sense for me. But I also feel like the movie has to speak for itself and the audience has to take what they take from it. And
the Holocaust happened. And there are people, who don't necessarily, of certain generations know our history. And so I think it's important to tell these stories.
Yeah.
And I don't think
sure is.
Yeah.
So what I love about this conversation is that along the way, here we are, Germany, as an actor, giving advice to actors. So I just want to end this conversation. There are a lot of actors who are still persevering. They're still just really working it, hustling, auditioning. That does go with the territory until you get to Entourage. What is some parting words of advice that you have for actors who are still trying to make it happen?
Go.
Yeah. No, listen, I spent the day working on my British accent with my dialect coach, who's I think here today, and I just think you just keep working and you stay after it and remain grateful. I think it's very, I don't mean to turn this into a spiritual TED Talk, and forgive me, but I think it's very easy to look at the things you don't have as opposed to really be grateful for what you have, and work very hard, not get ahead of yourself, be humble and grateful, and just stay after it, and it will come. It may not be in your timing. It'll be the divine time, but it'll come.
So with that, and you talk about a grassroots to get the word for the performance out there, that is up to you. So the movie opens at the end of the month, at the end of January. So please go on your social media, spread the word about the performance. And Jeremy and Shira, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
you.
Thank you so
Again,
much.
Happy New Year.
Thanks so much.